A new supermarket sounds like the easiest answer to expensive groceries. Let someone new come in, build big stores, fight the duopoly, make food cheaper. That is the simple version of the story. But in New Zealand, a supermarket is not just a shop with bright lights and trolleys. It is land. It is warehouses. It is chilled trucks. It is supplier contracts. It is shelf space. It is buying power. It is a whole machine behind the bread, milk, meat, apples, nappies, and coffee. If you cannot build that machine, you do not really have a supermarket. You only have a store that will struggle to fill its shelves at the right price. That is why today's supermarket news matters. Land Information New Zealand has issued fresh guidance for international investors on how to establish a new supermarket here. The government says New Zealand needs to stop doing things that repel new investment. Labour says the duopoly still holds the same kind of market power and that wholesale supply chains remain a major barrier. This argument sounds technical, but it is really about the weekly food bill. The deeper idea is this. In a small country, grocery competition is often won before the customer reaches the checkout. It is won in the land purchase. It is won in the planning process. It is won in the warehouse. It is won in the supplier negotiation. It is won in whether a new rival can buy enough stock, cheaply enough, often enough, to look like a real choice. New Zealand learned this the hard way. In March 2022, the Commerce Commission published its final market study into the grocery sector. It found that competition was not working well for consumers. The study looked at how retailers deal with suppliers, who consumers buy from, who supplies those retailers, how retailers compete with each other, and how grocery prices are set. That tells you something important. The problem was never only the price label on the shelf. The problem was the structure behind the shelf. For most shoppers, the supermarket market feels simple. There is foodstuffs, with brands like New World, Pack and Save, and Foursquare. There is Woolworths, which used to be Countdown. There are smaller stores, online sellers, fruit shops, butchers, dairies, and specialty retailers around the edges. But for a full weekly shop, the two big groups are the main road. Everyone else is usually a side road. That matters because groceries are not like luxury goods. People can delay a new sofa, they can keep an old phone, they can skip a restaurant, they cannot skip food for the family. When grocery competition is weak, the cost does not stay in one corner of the economy. It moves through rent stress, school lunches, health, debt, and the small daily choices people make when money is tight. So why is it so hard for a new supermarket to arrive? First, it needs land in the right places. A supermarket needs large sites near people, roads, parking, delivery access, and sometimes public transport. Those sites are not easy to find. They can be expensive. They can be tied up for years. They can face planning rules, local objections, and infrastructure limits. Second, it needs scale. One store is not enough. If a new entrant opens only 1 or 2 stores, suppliers may not offer the same price, range, or delivery terms they offer to a national chain. A supermarket needs volume because volume gives bargaining power. Bargaining power lowers the cost of goods. Lower cost makes sharper prices possible. Third, it needs distribution. Milk must be cold. Frozen food must stay frozen. Fresh produce must move quickly. Meat has strict handling rules. Bread arrives often. Thousands of products must be ordered, stored, picked, delivered, and replaced before customers notice the gaps. This is not romantic, it is logistics, and logistics is where many retail dreams die. That is why wholesale access is such a big issue. If a new or smaller retailer cannot buy groceries at fair wholesale terms, it cannot compete properly at retail. It may have a nice brand, it may have a good location, it may have lower prices on a few products, but it will not become the kind of competitor that changes the market. In 2023, Parliament passed the Grocery Industry Competition Act. One part of that law deals with wholesale supply. It can require regulated grocery retailers to have wholesale frameworks, and it is built around a principle that wholesale offerings should look like what would exist in a competitive wholesale market. The law also allows further regulation, including non-discrimination rules, so a large grocery retailer cannot treat wholesale customers unfairly compared with itself or others, except in limited and justified circumstances. In plain English, the law is trying to stop a closed circle. If the biggest retailers also control the strongest supply routes, then a new rival may have to ask its competitor for the stock it needs to compete. That is a very strange race. It is like asking the leading runner to lend you shoes. This is why international investment guidance may help, but it cannot be the whole answer. Clearer guidance can reduce uncertainty. It can tell a foreign investor what rules apply, what approvals may be needed, and how to approach the system. That matters because serious investors hate fog. They need to know the path before they spend millions of dollars on lawyers, land, staff, and stores. But guidance does not build warehouses. Guidance does not create supermarket sites. Guidance does not make suppliers confident overnight. Guidance does not turn a first store into a national network. It removes one kind of friction. It does not remove every wall. The real question is whether New Zealand wants a market where a third serious player can survive past the announcement stage. Many people remember big promises about new entrants. They also remember how hard it is to turn promise into choice. A supermarket chain cannot run on speeches. It has to run on trucks arriving before dawn, shelves being filled, staff being paid, leases being signed, and customers believing it will still be there next year. That belief is crucial. Shoppers do not change habits easily. Most people buy groceries near home, on the way from work, around school pickup, or in the same weekly routine. To change that routine, a new supermarket has to be reliable enough to be boring. It has to feel normal. It has to have the milk, the bread, the fruit, the cleaning products, and the specials week after week. That is much harder than cutting a ribbon. So when politicians argue about supermarket entrants, listen for the hidden words: not only investment, land; not only competition, wholesale; not only cheaper prices, supply chains; not only a new shop, a new system. This is the part of New Zealand life that is easy to miss. Small markets can be comfortable, familiar, and efficient, but they can also become hard to enter. Once a few players control the best sites, the supply relationships, the data, the loyalty habits, and the distribution scale, a newcomer needs more than permission. It needs a way through the structure. The checkout is only the last scene. The story starts much earlier. If this helped you understand why supermarket competition is about more than a cheaper block of cheese, share it with someone who watches the weekly grocery bill. And subscribe for more New Zealand stories explained through everyday life. In this country, the price of food is often decided long before the food reaches the shelf.